Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR. It's December 23rd, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. The Chiefs made a major announcement on Monday. When their lease expires after the 2030 season, they'll move across the state line and play their games in a new dome stadium in Wyandotte County, Kansas. Chiefs chairman and CEO Clark Hunt and Kansas Governor Laura Kelly made the announcement in Topeka, and Star columnist Sam McDowell and I were there to cover the event and to talk about it today. Later in the show, we'll catch up with beat writer Jaylon Thompson. He'll bring us up to date on the latest Royals moves. There have been plenty of personnel changes we need to catch up on. And then I'll tell you what's on my radar this week. But first, the Chiefs. Hello, Sam.
How's it going, Blair?
Good. Hey, so by any measure, to me, this came down to a simple choice for the Chiefs. Take the money or take more money. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I mean, in the end, the Chiefs took the bag. And, look, they're a business. They can operate their business how they see fit. I thought the most telling thing was when team president Mark Donovan said in his call with Missouri leaders, telling them that they had lost, that they understand this is a business decision. And whatever you think of it, to me, that's the bottom line, is the Chiefs made a business decision.
And took the better offer, right? I mean, this was Missouri had its offer, Kansas had its offer, and the Kansas offer was for more money. I mean, considerably more money. When you remove the emotion from this, and you can't remove the emotion, I get that, but who's going to turn down more money?
Well, yeah, I mean, what billionaire is going to turn down more money? I don't know that many do. I mean, they are getting $2 billion. It's like 1.8 and change, but nearly $2 billion in public money. And you're right that the Kansas offer was more money. It was also an easier path to obtain that money. I mean, they were negotiating with one entity, basically this Chamber of Commerce, and as opposed to trying to get money from the city, which is complicated because they don't own Arrowhead Stadium, the county, which we know all the complications. We've covered the complications of that, and then the state. But I do think it's important to note that the effort that Missouri put in to make its offer compelling, as Mark Donovan called it, he called it unprecedented at one point, what Missouri was offering. He's right. Like they called all their senators and representatives back from a summer vacation to hold a special session to create a mechanism that tried to match Star bonds. They, the county, for whatever the complications were, they put it on the ballot last April, still despite the fact that the teams didn't have leases. They didn't have CBAs yet. And then the city was trying to get involved, with the Chiefs' offer to the extent that it could. So there was plenty of effort, and there was a compelling offer in Missouri. And that's why I think the real takeaway from this is the Chiefs aspect of it, which is what you led off with. The Chiefs made this decision, and there's all this reaction that Missouri should have done this, and Missouri did a lot. Kansas did a lot. And, like you said, they technically offered more with it as well. But this, to me, is a Chiefs story more than the politics of it.
And as the Chiefs story begins in Kansas City in 1963 when they relocated from Dallas, Texas to Kansas City, played at Municipal Stadium for about a decade, and then moved over to Arrowhead for the 1972 season, which is where they have been since then, and where they will be for the next 5 seasons before the new stadium is built. I said earlier that there's an emotional component to this, and I've been hearing from Chiefs fans about it, the Missouri-based Chiefs fans. I really get the sensitivity about this. People who are Chiefs fans who live in Missouri are from a state that has lost teams previously. St. Louis certainly has, and Kansas City has experienced the loss of teams, and people are angry, they're frustrated, they're upset. It doesn't seem to satisfy that the team is moving essentially less than 20 miles away. We're in such a unique position to be in a metropolitan area with a state line splitting it in half, which gave the Chiefs this option, which will give the Royals an option of where to land their teams. If we were in Indianapolis or Minneapolis or Dallas or practically any other place in the country, and you wanted to build a new stadium, you would do it. If you're going to move it 20 miles away, you'd be in the same state. That's not the case in Missouri and Kansas. And that's what allowed the Chiefs to have two offers on the table. And maybe if this was just one metropolitan area and the Chiefs didn't like what Missouri was offering, they'd have packed up and left and gone somewhere else. But they did have Kansas, and they did have a generous offer, and that's why they are staying in the Kansas City metropolitan area.
Yeah, I mean, with everything you said is right, Blair. And look, I mean, I grew up in the area. I mean, there's a certain identity that people feel in Missouri that is connected to Arrowhead Stadium. And I have friends on both sides of the state line that are of my generation. And I'll tell you that the Missouri people are hurting about this. And if it's not hurt, it's anger. And I don't know how representative that is of the larger fan base that they have in Missouri, but I know it exists there. And part of what the Chiefs have to do now is they're going to have to repair some of that's been fractured with some of these fans who feel that attachment to Arrowhead Stadium. And I don't know that everyone who feels the attachment to Arrowhead Stadium is just in Missouri. I think there's some people in Kansas who certainly feel that same attachment. And there's other stadiums across the country that have been torn down and they built new. And like you said, I mean, look, the Oakland Raiders lost their team to Las Vegas. I mean, this stuff happens in a much harsher form to fans, but that doesn't mean that this isn't being felt pretty harshly by some of their fans. And that's part of the consequences of the decision they made.
Let's go back to how we got here. This, to me, it all started with the Royals back a few years ago when the Royals expressed the desire to, John Sherman, the owner, expressed the desire to build a new stadium, to move out of Coffee. He declared it basically when he took over the ownership. He was going to build a new stadium, and the target was downtown Kansas City. As we approached the vote for the extension of the 3/8 sales tax in Jackson County in April of 2024, that's when we started hearing, well, the Chiefs are going to get that as well. That's the way it's written, that whatever the Royals get in terms of a sales tax revenue, the Chiefs get that as well. Well, then the sales tax vote loses badly at the polls. And that's when, it seems to me, that's when the Chiefs really started to take seriously the idea of leaving Arrowhead. There have been little hints before that. I can remember Mark Donovan at an NFL owners meeting before that saying something about, having Kansas as an option. But would you agree that the loss at the ballot box in April of 2024 really was the catalyst to put all this in motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember writing that summer, whether it was just like a month after the vote failed, that these two teams were in better position for having voters rejected them. And it was because of this. It's what ignited this bidding war. And look, I mean, Governor Laura Kelly, I thought it was a bit absurd yesterday when she said this doesn't apply to the border war. Well, because it's not a corporation. Well, of course it applies. It's the biggest corporation we have in our area. And it all started with that vote that you mentioned. But again, I keep coming back to this piece of it is, I mean, the takeaway I think is I've seen all this noise about, well, the Chiefs gave the voters a chance. They gave Jackson County a chance by putting it on the ballot. Jackson County gave the Chiefs a chance. The city gave the Chiefs a chance. Their citizens gave the Chiefs a chance and the Royals a chance. And their project wasn't good enough. It was clunky from the Royals and it was uninspiring from the Chiefs. They did not give voters a reason to support it. And so I think that can't get lost in why this happened is because in the end, they had a chance to stay. And I don't think that's just the responsibility of the voters to allow them to stay. I think it's the responsibility of the teams to give them a reason for it.
That's such a good point. I remember the rendition of the upgraded Arrowhead, the improvements at Arrowhead, and you were basically talking about bridges for for the fans and nothing that.
Yeah, a way to tailgate, and it's like I've walked through Arrowhead Stadium parking lot many a times. I've never thought these people need to be taught how to tailgate better. Like they have that part figured out.
It was going to be, I think, an $800 million upgrade for Arrowhead. And it was around that time, heading into that vote. I remember Clark Hunt saying how, Arrowhead was his father's favorite place. Lamar Hunt, of course, the owner and founder of the Chiefs, and favorite place on earth, and emotional attachment to it. But then he invoked his father's name in Topeka a couple of days ago when he said this is what his thinks this is what his father would want, and that the family unanimously approved this idea. So
and look, only he knows that part, right? I mean, he's the only one who, none of us can say the decision that Lamar Hunt would have made here. That family, and Mark, like you said, Mark Donovan said that. I remember him back in training camp this year talking about a conversation that they had with the family. And he'd said, what would dad want? And I remember somebody else had wanted, I can't remember if Mark had identified which sibling it was that had basically said, can we move out of the place that dad built? And another sibling had said, well, he moved. I mean, this is not the first time this franchise has moved. And I think that's perhaps, could have changed the tone of this without being in those meetings, without being a privy to those conversations. I could see that sort of changing the tone of this for that family.
That's Sam McDowell. You're on SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR. Okay, Sam, what is a new stadium in Kansas going to bring to the metropolitan area? What changes are we going to see, and why is this a move that's going to push this metro area forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I think that if we had certain experts, like economists, I think they would really push back on that thought altogether to say that these things don't transcend communities the way that they're built to. I mean, the Chiefs certainly threw a lot of numbers to us and Governor Kelly about the jobs it's going to create and the money that it's going to bring. And like, we know those studies are always fluffed up. And look, the Kansas City Star coverage in the coming days and weeks and months, we'll dig into that stuff. But I think to what you're alluding to is that it does put Kansas City in the mix to get certain events that we probably have a tough time qualifying for because the Arrowhead Stadium is open air. I mean, Super Bowls, Final Fours, college football playoffs have all been mentioned. I will point out Arrowhead Stadium was plenty good enough to score the World Cup.
Yes, it was.
So it's not nothing.
Very good point. To me, maybe an underappreciated part of this discussion in general has been the new headquarters and practice facility in Olathe. That's as far as sort of a day-to-day fan experience for a new facility. It's that, and not the new stadium, that fans will relate to, right? If the Chiefs continue to have fans invite fans to their training camp the way they do at St. Joe and Missouri Western, for that to be in Olathe, that'll be more of a connectivity for fans than a new stadium, especially if you're talking about needing to shell out the money for the personal seat license and on top of for the privilege of buying your season ticket. It'll be a lot different for Kansas City fans who won't have to drive as far to St. Joe to see the training camp.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that they're planning some sort of mixed use at both facilities, the practice facility and the stadium. But you're right, Blair. I mean, I think just from affordability point, it's probably going to be a better connection point for the fans that want to feel like they're around the team that they cheer for. And you and I have both been in the area where the Star is in Dallas, and it is. I mean, it's a spectacular thing to see, and I'm sure that's probably going to be their model. I know that from having conversations with Chiefs leadership in the past, that they've also been pretty infatuated with what Minnesota has. And I haven't been to that complex. I've heard good things, but my guess is that Dallas and Minnesota are going to be two things that they're going to be studying as they build what you're talking about in Olathe.
And speaking of Minnesota, their stadium is spectacular as well.
It's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, it's a dome stadium that's going to happen over in Wyandotte County, Kansas. And if it's anything like what exists in Minnesota, fans will be really happy. It's a great stadium. I think maybe the best NFL stadium now is in Minnesota.
I agree with you. I think Minnesota's got the best stadium. I do think whatever the Chiefs build, I think it'll be a really cool thing to walk into. I think the Chiefs are going to have to do some work to make everyone feel like they're inclusive in that, because they're talking about, capacity could be 10,000 fewer fans. You mentioned the PSLs that could be attached to it, where you've got to pay thousands of dollars in advance that we don't know. The Chiefs have not confirmed that will be part of it. Clark Hunt did note that every new stadium has that. I think he's setting the tone for the fact that, and you wrote about that today, setting the tone for the fact that that will probably be part of a new building. So I do wonder exactly like the crowd makeup maybe compared to the crowd makeup today. And so we'll see. I know that they're going to do everything they can to replicate Arrowhead's environment, but it's a different place. Like it's going to be different. It's not going to be Arrowhead Stadium. It's going to be different.
No doubt about it. And although we'll have time to discuss this in future shows, how about a quick thought on how this may impact the Royals and the pursuit of the Royals? Does it give the Royals a little leverage, or where does the leverage go now when it comes to the Royals, on the Missouri side, on the Kansas side, on the Royals side? What can we expect from the Royals?
I always thought whoever announced second would have a major advantage between the Chiefs and Royals, because whoever loses, quote unquote, loses the first battle, I think is going to feel even more invigorated to win the second. And so, look, we've already seen a statement from Mayor Quentin Lucas in Kansas City that has mentioned, okay, now we can turn our attention to the Royals, sort of thing. Like, I don't think that, even though I disagree with the fact that we should be judging these politicians on how much money they give these billionaire owners, they are frequently judged by that. And I think politicians are very aware of that. And so I think that whether it's the city, the county, less likely the county, but the city and the state in particular, I think that it's going to be a full court press.
All right, great stuff, Sam. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break, and when we return, you'll hear, speaking of the Royals, you'll hear from Jaylon Thompson, our Royals beat writer, on the Royals' recent moves. We're back on SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Star and KCUR, and talking Royals with beat writer Jaylon Thompson. Hello, Jaylon.
Hey, Blair. How you doing?
Good. Hey, the Royals have been busy over the last couple of weeks. I thought we'd start with a familiar before getting to the additions, and that includes an old friend. Third baseman Maikel Garcia gets a 5-year extension, kind of locking up the left side of the infield for the foreseeable future. Garcia's coming off his best season, playing in 160 games, hitting .286 with 16 home runs and a wins above average at 5.8 according to Baseball Reference. Plus, he won a Gold Glove, made an All-Star appearance. I think this was a good move for the Royals. 5 years at $57.5 million with escalators. What do you think about this, Jaylon?
I thought it was a good move, especially with the Royals having 4 years of control left. They pretty much just bought out his arbitration and gave him a significant raise in if the guaranteed money that he got, plus the club option for 2031. You got to realize this is a guy that's 25 years old, not even in his prime yet, has already hit a mark where he posted career highs across the board last year, really found himself. I thought it was really interesting just his mentality and his mindset after signing the extension. He was like, I got my house, I got my car, and then he got the extension. He's good. He's just ready to focus on baseball. You don't really hear that a lot from a lot of young guys that are just still trying to find their way in the game. But with Maikel Garcia, his background, his family, where he comes from in Venezuela, just for him to turn around a absolutely dismal 2024 campaign, which he called himself the worst player in baseball, to putting together a 2025, like you said, with an all-star appearance, getting MVP votes down the ballot, winning a Gold Glove, being a Silver Slugger finalist. It just, all those things come together, and I mean, it's a well-deserved deal for Michael and also for the Royals to continue to show that they can invest in their young talent and not let them walk out their door, which was kind of the thing that happened earlier in the past decades that they were with the team.
Right, right. So he's definitely a positive force in the clubhouse and on the team. What one or two things does he need to do to up his game? Where does he need to improve?
I think for Michael, it's always going to be about just being able to be that constant force on the base pass. Not try to worry about hitting the home runs like he tried to do in 2024, but do exactly what he did in 25. Get on base, be the guy that can surround Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez with options to score. Get on base, score the runs, right? Play great defense. I think those are the things that he really needs to work on just to continue to do. I mean, he did those at a phenomenal clip in 2025, but you got to do it in 2026, in 2027, in 2028, and so forth, right? To really make the contract hold up and hold his value. So I think like if he can do that, he's going to play great defense. He's going to be a third baseman. He's not moving anywhere else around the diamond. So it's just a matter of being pristine in those areas of what I just mentioned, because traditionally a third baseman hits a lot of home runs, and I don't think Michael is ever going to be someone that's going to hit 30 home runs. But if he can do the little things to just constantly be on base, I think you'll find value there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having him in a Royals uniform here in the next few years. And I think the same could be said about some of the new acquisitions here. The Royals went into the offseason looking for some outfield help and some offense. They hope they have it in Lane Thomas and Isaac Collins, both coming over in deals. So let's start with Lane Thomas. He a 7-year big league career, played only 39 games for Cleveland a year ago, but his 2023 season in Washington was pretty big, right? 28 home runs and 20 stolen bases. Can play all three outfield positions. What are the Royals getting in Lane Thomas, and what are their plans for him?
They plan to use him all over the outfield. They said that he has an opportunity to earn regular at bats. He's got to go out there and prove that he's that guy that, like you mentioned, in 2023 when he hit the 28 homers with the Nationals, or what he did with Cleveland in 2024. Last year was a difficult season for him. He had a couple injuries. He had the right wrist bone bruise early in the season. Then he had the right plantar fasciitis, which he had to have surgery on. He said that he has resumed baseball activities and he's really just working his way back. Pretty much throwing, hitting, he's still got to get the running part down and situated. But they said that he pretty much could be ready to go by spring training. So the Royals were hopeful and we're excited to know that it can be pretty much full go when the time for the lights to come on in February. But he's a guy, they needed a right-handed option to be in the outfield. He can provide that. I can see him probably platooning with Jack Caglione to start until Caglione shows that he has adjusted to MLB pitching, and continues to grow in that regard. I could see him probably getting some time in center field with Kyle Isbell when they're facing a tough lefty and things of that nature. And same with Isaac Collins, because you can move Collins to the infield if you need to for certain games, if that's possible. So there's ways to get him in there, put him at DH, But the Royals really like his speed and his defense and his ability to get on base. He just has to prove that he can be that bounce back candidate because, like you said, last year was a difficult one for him.
Right. But they do like the 292 career batting average against left-handed pitching. That's a big thing for Lane Thomas. And for Isaac Collins, who you mentioned, coming over in a trade with the Milwaukee Brewers, he's an on-base guy. And that's got to have a lot of appeal to the Royals.
Yeah, Jason Piccolo, Rose general manager, said that Collins reminds him a lot of Whit Merrifield. Just how he started his career kind of late getting to the big leagues and kind of blossomed. You got to remember, Collins last year finished fourth in NL Rookie of the Year voting. So he was a really good spark plug for that Brewers team that made it to the playoffs and really won a lot of games. And you can't underestimate the fact, too, that he's coming to the Royals, and he'll have one of his hitting coaches with him in Connor Dawson. So that's some familiarity right there. Maybe they can continue to work on some things, fine tune some things with him to continue to help him grow and ascend. But one thing that I like about Collins, he's a switch hitter. So that means that you got someone that can hit from both sides of the plate. And the Royals really haven't had that switch hitter in their lineup for a while. So I think that'll be a unique look, and they'll be able to use him in different ways, because if he's hitting the ball, you pretty much can't take him out of the lineup because he can hit on both sides of the plate. So that's a plus for the Royals and what they like to do using the whole roster. I think with him, it's going to be, can he continue to show what he did last year and take that next step? Because if he takes the next step and he becomes a guy that can be a all-star or something of that light, or provide that production, the Royals really got to steal here in this trade, because they got him and they got a reliever, Nick Mears, and they only gave up on Hell Zerpa.
Right. So Collins, good defensive player as well, 6 outs above average last year. You mentioned Nick Mears. I look at him as a setup guy for Urseg and Estevez in that role, and they traded away Angel Zerpa, who at times was a terrific left-handed relief pitcher for the Royals. I thought may have been at his best in the postseason 2 years ago when he closed out playoff victories for the Royals. They'll miss Zerpa, but they picked up Mears, and after all this happened, here comes an old friend in Matt Strom back to the Royals in a trade with the Philadelphia Phillies. The Royals gave up Jonathan Bolin. I remember when the Royals signed Matt Strom, developed him. He came out of Neosho County Community College in Kansas in the 2012 draft, and was in the major leagues pretty soon. He's 34 years old, and in Bolin 29, so the Royals kind of lose on the age trade here. But Strom, man, I remember him. Wasn't this past season, but 2024, he was lights out good for the Phillies. Left-handed reliever, I think he obviously goes right into the Royals bullpen. What do you like about this trade?
Yeah, I thought it was a very strong trade. Matt Strom put up some good numbers last year as well. I mean, I think it was a 2.74 ERA. So he's been really great just in that bullpen. And I really got to give a lot of kudos to JJ Picoult and the Royals front office. A lot of fans will look at these last trades and these signings so far, and they'll say, well, where's the impact bat? Where's the guy that's going to take it over the hump, right? What's the big name? Where's the blockbuster? But in reality, the Royals, they would have liked to have a blockbuster type of guy, but if that doesn't materialize, you still got great value in these trades and these signings where you're helping to raise the floor of the team. And also you kept all of the starting depth that you need, so you can still go out. If you don't make the trade in the offseason, you can make that trade midseason if you need to. So you're in a really good spot. And I think for them to get better without sacrificing one of their top young starters, you basically gave up 2 relievers to get the improvements that you did to raise the floor. Guys that aren't going to change the stat sheet, but are going to be productive and, give great effort. You got to commend the Royals front office for that. I think Matt Strom is a person that you really can see being a big key piece in the bullpen. Someone kind of similar to when they got John Schreiber in 2023 and what he did for the bullpen. He won't be the glitz and glamour guy, but he'll be someone that you're like, man, it's really great that we got Matt Strom to get these 3 lefties out in a row. So I think that is going to be key for the Royals. Like I said, I think it's been a great offseason so far, and they still have all of their trade chips. They want to go and get that big name guy, whenever that may be.
Right. So we'll keep paying attention to the Royals in the offseason. Pitchers and catchers don't report until early February. Who knows what'll happen between now and then? But whatever it does, we will talk with Jaylon Thompson, the Royals beat writer for the Kansas City Star. Jaylon, thanks for the conversation. We'll do it again soon.
Great. Thanks, Blair.
On my radar in Kansas City sports this week, the Chiefs, of course. They've become the NFL's team of Christmas. This year marks the 3rd straight they will have competed with Santa Claus for our attention. This time it's the Denver Broncos at Arrowhead, where the teams are heading in opposite directions. The Chiefs recently owned a 16-game winning streak over Denver, and now the Broncos have won 2 straight over Kansas City, and they're favored to make it 3 in a row. The Chiefs are down to their 3rd quarterback, Chris Oladokun, after the injury to top reserve Gardner Minshew in last weekend's loss to the Tennessee Titans. Minshew, of course, was playing for the injured Patrick Mahomes. I'm wondering what we're going to see on Thursday. The Chiefs' effort wasn't great against Tennessee, and now they're underdogs to a Denver team that'll be motivated to win and bid to become the top seed in the AFC playoffs. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC staff of Gabriella, Lacey, Suzanne Hogan, Irvin, Zhang, and Monty Davis, and to our editors, Jeff Rosen and Scott Chasen. We'll be back soon on SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City, and have a safe and Merry Christmas.